Working on restitutions is always very special. We are telling a personal and family story, as well as a whole section of history. This is also a duty to pay tribute to the people whose work were looted, whether they were Jewish collectors or other collectors, such as Ambroise Vollard.
Sotheby's is the temporary custodian of some of the world's most rare, remarkable and coveted art and objects. In each episode, we'll be exploring the significance and journey of an extraordinary work told by those who know it best. This is The Specialist. On today's episode, the tangled history of a Paul Gauguin still life. Once a fixture at the Musée d'Orsay, and now the subject of a landmark restitution after being misappropriated from the estate of art dealer Ambroise Vollard. Aurélie Vandevoorde, head of modern and contemporary art in Paris and deputy chairman of Sotheby's France, unpacks the complexities of the restitution case and how this masterpiece found its way back to the market. Let's join Aurélie now with more.
Ambroise Vollard was probably the most important art dealer at the beginning of the 20th century. He had a huge collection with thousands of works. He arrived in Paris in 1887 to study law, and he discovered a painting by Paul Cézanne, and it was a kind of revelation for him. It changed his plan, and he started working for an art dealer, and then after he opened his own gallery. Vollard was pivotal in Paul Gauguin's career. In 1896, he's the one who organized the first exhibition dedicated to Titian works by Gauguin, and he became his main dealer. It's very likely that many artists wouldn't be so famous today without the role played by Ambroise Vollard. So this work is titled Nature morte avec pivoine de Chine et mandoline, which means still life with china peonies and mandolin. The painting was considered as one of the gems of the Musée d'Orsay, hanging in the museum's most prestigious and busiest rooms. So for almost 40 years, this painting has been closely linked to the image of the Musée d'Orsay, having been admired by tens of millions of visitors. This painting is very interesting in the corpus of Paul Gauguin. It was executed in 1885 at the beginning of his career. Gauguin decided to devote himself full-time to his art. And 1885 is also a very exciting moment of transition between Impressionism, because Gauguin started to paint with Pissarro in Pontoise, and his more mature style that he will develop in Tahiti. So it is at this precise moment that he started to experiment. It was also at the same time that Ambroise Vollard began to see potential in Gauguin and became a key player in his career. He moved to Copenhagen when he rejoined his wife Mette and his 5 children. And it was really a pivotal year for Gauguin. He was there during the winter. His painting focused mainly on interior scenes, like this one. Gauguin described his profound disappointment of not being able to paint outdoors due to the sub-zero temperatures. But the consequences of this is that he realized some of his more remarkable still lifes, thanks to which he was able to experiment and try new techniques. So we don't know exactly when Vollard acquired this painting. We know that in 1922 he already was the owner, but what is sure is that he acquired it directly from Gauguin himself. It is the best provenance that we could dream for a painting by Gauguin, given the importance of Ambroise Vollard in Gauguin's career. So Ambroise Vollard died suddenly in a car accident in 1939, and he left behind approximately 6,000 artworks. Since he had no direct children, he had many inheritance, including his brother Lucien Vollard, who was appointed executor of the estate. So it was a complicated succession. The context was also very specific because it was just the very beginning of the World War. What happened is that the 2 experts appointed to the estate, who were Martin Fabiani and Étienne Bignoux, misappropriated some of the works with the complicity of Lucien Vollard, the brother of Ambroise Vollard, selling them to German dealers or museums or to Nazi members. And at the end of the war, works found in Germany were shipped back to France, listed as MNR works and deposited in French national museums. MNR means Musée Nationaux Récupération, National Museums Recovery. It is a number associated to works recovered in Germany at the end of the war and deposited with national museums in France until they can be returned to their rightful owners. So the MNR were created to ensure the safekeeping of works looted in France during the Second World War and found outside France. And this is exactly what happened with the Gauguin painting. It was not a case of spoliation from Jewish collectors, because Vollard's artwork were not seized under the race laws issued by the Nazis. It was a case of sale of works during the occupation, which were sent to Germany and then repatriated to France. And during many years, this kind of situation was considered as a kind of gray area by lawyers and authorities, since it was not clear if the sales were legal or not. And in the case at hand, the main argument was that the works were misappropriated by Lucien Vollard without involving the other heirs. Sotheby's had a long story with the Ambroise Vollard family. In 2010, Sotheby's was chosen by the Vollard heirs to sell some of the works of this estate. This first episode in 2010 regarded 140 works from the Vollard collection that were found in a bank vault in Paris in 1979. We did the sale of all these works in Paris for 23 million euros. So we had a very strong link with the Ambroise Vollard story. When the Ambroise Vollard heirs decided to claim the restitution of the Gauguin painting, I was involved from the beginning because Sotheby's was asked to provide values for this work and for a few other ones which were also claimed. But the legal procedures took much more time than expected, and we had to wait until the final court decision in 2023 to be able to orchestrate the sale of this painting. The story was not at all a typical restitution story. This is precisely the reason why it took so long to have the work restituted to the heirs of Ambroise Vollard. We found this painting precisely mentioned in an inventory of Fabiani and Bignou in 1940. We precisely know that these two experts sold this painting to the Kaiser Wilhelm Museum in Krefeld in Germany in February 1941. After the war, the painting was recovered in the British zone and returned to France as MNR, and the Gauguin first entered the collection of the Musée du Louvre in 1950, and later it was transferred to the Musée d'Orsay when it opened in 1986. But the complexity of this status is the fact that all the MNR works are not necessarily spoliated works. They can also include works commissioned by German clients, to French artists or to French dealers, or works normally sold to German clients by French artists or dealers, which sometimes happened even during the war. Some transactions can be legal. So in the case at hand, the debate was to determine if the sale of the Gauguin to the Kaiser Wilhelm Museum was legal or not. The Ambroise Vollard heirs started to request the restitution of the Gauguin painting in 2013, and they were arguing that Lucien Vollard did business with the Nazi authorities without the approval of the other heirs, and that their sales should be considered as illegal. However, the French state was a little bit reluctant to give back this painting, which was one of the beautiful Gauguin of the Orsay Museum. And in January 2018, the French authorities refused to return the work to Ambroise Vollard heirs, claiming that there was not sufficient proof that the pieces were stolen. Finally, the heirs of Ambroise Vollard decided to bring the matter before a court to assert their rightful ownership of this work. And in February 2023, after a decade-long legal dispute, so it was very long, a French court ordered to the Musée d'Orsay in Paris to return the painting to the different heirs of Ambroise Vollard. And this is at this moment that we were able to present it at auction. It was very moving because we had expected this sale for such a long time that when the painting arrived to Sotheby in Paris, it was the first time that we were really able to examine it physically, to touch it, whereas we always saw it at the Orsay Museum before. It was almost unexpected 10 years after, but it was a dreamful moment. I especially remember the day we announced the sale of this work. We organized a press conference in Paris. It was a very moving day with journalists coming from all over the world to admire the work, because it's so rare to have a painting coming from the Orsay Museum presented at auction. You had the coordination of two very exciting factors: the provenance of the Orsay Museum, of course, which is probably the most famous museum in the world for Impressionism, and the mystic provenance of Ambroise Vollard. So the announcement had a great impact. After that, it was quite easy to orchestrate all the sale in New York. And finally, the painting was sold for $10.4 million in May 2023. I think that this case was extremely interesting because it enlarged the scope of restitutions. The situation is quite clear for works which were spoliated to Jewish families, and restitutions have fortunately become more frequent and generally not questioned today. But all the other situations, such as this one, are carefully analyzed in order to determine if a sale was voluntary or not. And so I think that this case showed that museums could have to restitute works, even if we are not in the context of a traditional restitution. It was very interesting, and I think that it opens the door to potential other restitutions in the future.
Thank you for joining us on The Specialist. This has been brought to you by Sotheby's Financial Services. SFS offers asset-based loans to unlock the value of your fine art, automobiles, and other luxury collectibles. To step further into the world of Sotheby's, visit any one of our galleries, which are open to the public. Go to sotheby's.com to find out more.